A Plaguelands Media production.
Hey everyone, this is Hugh from Plaguelands Media bringing you another book review today. So, cheers. Today I'm enjoying Cooper's Best Extra Stout. I'm just going to open this right on camera and have a nice drink. Cooper's, of course, being an Australian brewery. So, I'm very happy to get this over here in South Korea. Now, the book I am bringing to you today is a book that to be perfectly honest with all you little Plaguelandians out there, reviewed last week and lost the footage. So I'm reviewing it again, and that is perfectly fine because this was an absolutely fantastic thriller. This is The Teacher by Freida McFaddon. Now, I'd never heard of this author before. The only way I found out about her was I was at the airport picking up my wife from a trip, and in the bookstore there was a bunch of Freida McFaddon books. I read the back of one, was instantly intrigued, and I just bought every Freida McFaddon book they had at the airport store. I shit you not, I have them in the office, and I absolutely love the premise of these thrillers, but they're very humanistic thrillers. It's not like a detective chasing a serial killer. It's actual people, real life. Well, okay, they're not based on real life, but I'm kind of saying that they are realistic in as much as a person gets thrown into a situation and shit hits the fan. It's film noir at its finest, but it's relatable. And that's what I love about these kind of situations, these stories. Now, I started with The Teacher. This isn't Freida McFaddon's first book, but it's the one that kind of grabbed my initial attention. Now, the plot is basically a teacher at a high school. There is a student who the previous year allegedly had inappropriate relations with her mathematics teacher, and he got fired. And now it is the new school year, and this teacher who she's not against this student, but the teacher that got fired was her mentor. It's kind of her story, but at the same time, it's the student's story, and things just kind of escalate. So you've got the perspective of the teacher, this mathematics teacher called Eve. You've got the perspective of the student, Addie. You've got the perspective of Eve's husband, who is also a teacher at the school, Nate. He is the English teacher. And all of these stories kind of spiral around one another, and you never know when they're going to collide. And when they do collide, it is a fucking shitstorm of awesome. So, this is going to be a spoiler-filled review of The Teacher. If you don't want to know exactly what happens to these characters, please, by all means, go out, get this book, get it a hard copy, get it Audible, get an ebook version. It is well worth your time to read this for yourself, to enjoy it. It is an intense slow burn. And by that I mean every single chapter, you're kind of on the edge of your seat. You never know where it's going to go from one point to the next. And it builds up rather slowly. until the ending, which is absolutely phenomenal and has solidified Freida McFaddon as one of my favorite thriller authors of all time. I think her writing style is accessible. It's easy to grasp. She gets into the minds of the characters, which I really appreciate and I really love. And none of the characters sound the same. There's sometimes where you get kind of differing perspectives. It's all first person. You get differing perspectives, but they all sound same old, same old, same old. Not with this. Addie sounds like a teenager. Eve sounds like a 30-something teacher. And it just is a really fascinating, fun, sometimes scary if you're an educator, read. So if you don't want to know what happens, go and look at any other Playglaze Media videos. They're all fucking awesome, I should know. But if you do want to know what happens in The Teacher between Eve and Addie and Nate and all of the other characters, then stick around for the next episode of
Read a fucking book. Read a fucking book. Read a fucking book. People.
Oh boy, did this book pucker my butt cheeks. The premise itself is quite terrifying in the day and age that we live in, where teachers, elementary school, middle school, high school, even university professors don't have the protections that they used to. A student says something against an educator and everything just absolutely goes to shit. It happened when I was at high school. There were numerous fantastic teachers whose reputations were ruined by a rumor or slander or whatever. Now, The Teacher revolves around the main character of Eve. Eve is married to, she's a mathematics teacher who is married to the English teacher. They work at the same high school. Nate is very popular. Eve, not so much. She kind of pushes her students hard, whereas Nate is that fun English teacher who teaches poetry and he loves Edgar Allan Poe and blah, blah, blah. Now, Eve understands that Nate is considered handsome and charismatic among faculty and students, whereas she is not. She's kind of rather plain, and a lot of people don't understand how they're married, why they're married. So the school year starts, and Eve's mentor, this teacher called Art Tully, has been fired. Well, fired, resigned. All because there's the assumption that he had an inappropriate relationship with this student, Addie. Now, as the book progresses, we find out that it wasn't an inappropriate relationship. The principal of the school assumed that after questioning Addie when Addie was found outside of Tully's house. Now, to give you a little bit of a quick backstory, Addie's drunken, abusive father had passed away. The math teacher, Tully, had taken her under his wing, helped her with her mathematics, which she is not really good at, and became almost like a father figure to her. And the whole thing is one giant misunderstanding. But the principal doesn't see it that way, the staff don't see it that way, the students don't see it that way. So when Addie comes back to school the following year, she's a pariah. Addie falls under the ire of the cheerleading captain, this girl called Kenzie. Kenzie is now supposedly dating Hudson, who is the star quarterback of the football team. Hudson was Addie's best friend all through elementary school and middle school and whatnot. And then something happened and that friendship kind of broke apart. That something was the death of Addie's father. So Eve comes back to school. This is really twisted. I'm throwing shit at you. Just go along with it. It will make sense. Eve comes back to school and discovers that Addie's in her math class. Addie is also in her husband's English class. And as the story goes on, we discover that Eve's husband, Nate, is something of a poet. And Addie is also a poet. So Nate convinces Addie to join the school's poetry magazine, which she does. And that ultimately leads into an inappropriate relationship with Addie and Nate. Eve, in the meantime, we find out has a shoe fetish and is having an affair with this guy, Jay, who works at her favorite shoe store. Okay, you're all caught up now. We got the backstories. Kenzie, the cheerleader who is supposedly dating Hudson but isn't, is being a bitch to Addie and discovers a poem that Nate, the English teacher, wrote to Addie and freaks the fuck out. Things kind of progress along until it reaches a head where Eve discovers that Nate is sleeping with Addie and starts putting all these demands on him. It's not a good relationship. The marriage has been kind of going downhill for a while. And she puts all these demands on him, and Nate is kicked out of the house. At this point, Nate texts Addie, and Addie goes to the house to confront Eve, ends up hitting her in the head with a frying pan, and freaks out, of course, and calls Nate. Nate comes, sees what's happened, and tells Addie to go upstairs and get some sheets. The more I'm talking about this, the more I'm realizing how fucked up it sounds, but honestly, when you read it, it's amazing. I'm doing it a complete disservice. So as Addie's going to get the sheets, Nate realizes that his wife is still alive and chokes her to death, supposedly. Addie comes back down. As they're wrapping the body up, she sees the hand marks around Eve's throat, questions Nate, and Nate basically gives her this bullshit fucking reason, this excuse. They drive Eve's car to a train station and leave it there as part of the alibi, and then they go to this pumpkin patch and they bury Eve's body. Nate, telling Addie that he has left her purse in the car, fucks off and basically leaves her to do everything, and then just leaves her out in the middle of nowhere. And Nate's hope is that the police will tie Addie to Eve's death, because there have been speculation that Addie is stalking them, and Addie cheated her on a test and she's wanting to get revenge on Eve. And he basically fucks off, and Eve calls Hudson, who hasn't been speaking to her for a while. The reason being, and this is where we find out that Addie and Hudson were studying at Addie's house. Addie's father came home, drunk as shit, gets into a huge argument, and Addie pushes him down the stairs, and he ends up dying from a broken neck. And Addie and Hudson cover it up, and Hudson can't kind of deal with this. So Hudson comes to help her. Hudson has seen how Kenzie has been treating her the entire year, and so Eve is now missing, presumed deceased. The police get involved, and the detective is given Addie's name by Nate. Nate saying that Addie was the one that was stalking her, wanting to kill her, blah, blah, blah. The detective goes and visits Addie. Addie's mother is kind of freaking out about everything. Addie denies the whole thing because Nate told her to deny everything. The affair, the whole lot, just deny. The police officer suspects something is going on. And while she's kind of investigating, Kenzie comes to Addie's house. Kenzie has been bullying her the entire year. Comes to Addie's house and says, we need to talk. And we find out that the poem that she found is the poem that Nate wrote to her when she was 14 years old, and that she and Nate have been sleeping together since Kenzie was 14, and the reason Kenzie has been harassing Addie the entire year is because after the incident with the math teacher, Nate broke it off with Kenzie and said, we can't do this anymore, there's too much heat. And so Kenzie blamed Addie for that, and that is why the shit hit the fan. Kenzie convinces Addie, let's go to the police and turn Nate in. While this is happening, Nate is being harassed. There are clues being left in his house that someone knows what he did to his wife. And so the cop now knows that Nate is a predator. We find out that Eve is alive. She didn't actually die, and the only reason she survived was because when Nate left Addie didn't fill in the grave properly and just pushed some leaves over the top of it, so there was room for her to escape. She and the shoe salesman, Jay, have been harassing Nate. They finally lure him to the place where Eve herself was buried, and they bury him alive. Eve goes to the police, tells them that she's not dead, she's not missing, that Addie had nothing to do with anything. She had merely gone on a trip, thus exonerating Addie, even though Addie did try to kill her with the frying pan, and leaves the school. And Kenzie and Addie become friends, but here was the shit-stopping moment in this book. We find out that the person that works in the shoe store, Jay, is, in fact, Addie's friend Hudson. Hudson goes by Jay when he's on the football team because his name is Jakowski, and the other team members don't want to say that because everyone refers to each other by their last names, but Jakowski is too long, so they just call him Jay. Eve was under the impression that he was married because someone kept calling him and she could hear a baby in the background. It was just his younger brother. And it was his mother calling him, when are you going to be home, blah, blah, blah. So that in and of itself was a twist, but how could this mathematics teacher not know that the guy she's fucking in a shoe store is a student at the same university, same high school that she works at. That was a bit of a stretch. But you know what? I don't fucking care, because this was an awesome thriller. Oh, we also find out, I'm sorry, I forgot another fucking twist at the end here. We also find out that Eve, when she started her relationship with Nate, was his fucking student, a 15-year-old high school teacher. So Nate has this predilection for seducing his young students, and then when he gets bored of them, he moves on to the next one. And they kill him. Everything's justified. That as well was a butt-puckering fucking moment. But The Teacher by Freida McFaddon was an absolutely fantastic read. It was one of those you can't put it down books, because every chapter leads into something else. And you just want to know, what keeps happening. This is a book that I would describe as a miss your stop on the train novel, because there are a number of times I was reading this going home and looked up and like, oh fuck, it's my station. Just completely unaware of what was going on around me. Just wanted to know what the fuck was going on with The Teacher. I have 3 more of Freida McFaddon's novels: The Housemaid's Secret, and I believe it's called Tell No Lies. And I cannot wait to read them and review them for all you little Plaguelandians out there. But this is fucking fantastic. This author is great. I mean, lesson 1, trust no one. There you have it. As an educator, I agree with that wholeheartedly. So, if you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, leave a comment, do all that fucking good stuff. Take a drink. But most importantly, stay safe. Have a fantastic rest of your day. And of course, read a fucking book, people.